Back to Sports Extra with me, Ahmed Nawaz. Time now for our tennis segment now. The US Open tennis tournament is underway. The semi-final lineup is almost completed. It's been a dream run for some, and for some it's been a heartbreak. Let's go watch this report and then come back.
As the US Open proceeds further, Leylah Fernandez, Aryna Sabalenka, Olga Aliassime and Daniil Medvedev advanced to the semi-finals. In the women's singles, Canadian teenager Leylah Fernandez continued her US Open dream run by storming into her first Grand Slam semi-final with a win over Ukrainian fifth seed Elina Svitolina. She had previously knocked out four-time major champion Naomi Osaka in the third round and three-time Grand Slam winner Angelique Kerber in the fourth. Leylah Fernandez will face Aryna Sabalenka in the semi-finals, whereas Felix Auger-Aliassime from the men's single is joining fellow Canadian Leylah Annie Fernandez in the semi-finals of the US Open. Alcaraz of Spain retired in the second set due to a leg injury. World's number 2 Daniil Medvedev overcame Dutchman Botic van de Zandschulp to reach his third straight semi-final at the US Open tennis tournament. Auger-Aliassime will face number 2 seed Daniil Medvedev in the semi-finals.
There you have it, that report courtesy Team Sports Extra regarding the US Open and how so far it has been able to give us almost the semi-final lineup that has been completed. On the men's side, it has been completed. On the women's side, we know that there are still a couple of games remaining, 2 quarterfinals to go. But so far, we know that it's been a dream run for Leylah Fernandez. We'll be talking all about this, the US Open in general. And, I think we've got to talk about the immortality of Novak Djokovic in tennis. That is really now unmatchable when we talk about it. And we'll be discussing all about this in tonight's show. We've been joined by tennis player, tennis expert, somebody who really changed the dynamics of women's tennis in Pakistan, Miss Ushna Suhail. Ushna, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Sports Extra.
Walaikum salam.
Ushna, great to have you. First of all, your thoughts on the US Open, and we'll move on to the women's side first. Leylah Fernandez, somebody who wouldn't nobody would have put their money on Fernandez so far, but she beat Naomi Osaka. She was able to beat Elina Svitolina, and she's made it all the way to her very first Grand Slam semi-final.
Yes, definitely. I think Leylah Fernandez is a very upcoming bright star in women's tennis, because she's knocked up some really tough seeds, starting from Naomi Osaka. I think no one expected her to beat her like that, because Naomi Osaka is obviously a great competitor. She's been a Grand Slam champion 3 times already. So, I mean, Leylah Fernandez came in as an underdog, but I think she's showed up what a competitor she is, then coming up against Naomi Osaka in the next round against Angelique Kerber, who's also such an experienced and one of the best players in the WTA tour, beating her in the third set like that. And then now against Svitolina, yesterday I saw the match. Svitolina fought back really well. She was 5-2 down in the third set, but then she came back and made it 5-all. But in tennis, it's all about playing well when it matters the most, and that's exactly what Leylah Fernandez did. In the tiebreak as well, she was down and out in between, but then at 5-all, she played 2 world-class points to close out the match. And the running shot, I still remember the running shot she hit at 5-all in the third set in the tiebreak. The running forehand that she passed through Svitolina, so that clearly shows you what a good competitor she is and what a good prospect she is for women's tennis, in the future. So she's beaten some top-class players, and you never know, maybe she's the favorite to win the US Open now, the way she's just crushing the ball and she's hitting winners, unexpectedly from everywhere on the tennis court. So it's just tremendous to see this level of tennis, and if she keeps this up, there's no doubt she has full potential to win the US Open Tennis Championships this year.
Ushna, in your experience, do you think the dynamics of tennis are now changing? Obviously, we know that sports all around the world is evolving. But, this was a game that really saw experience at the end of the day that was most critical to win Grand Slams. It saw that determination, the ability to go longer sets was what was required, the ability to hang on, be patient. But now suddenly, whether we go to the men's side or the women's side, we're seeing 18, 19-year-olds, 20 years old coming and beating probably the most experienced tennis players and making a name for themselves.
Yes, I mean, on the men's side as well, if we talk about Spaniard Alcaraz, he knocked out Stefanos Tsitsipas, who's obviously a way more experienced, and he's one of the next-gen stars. And Now Alcaraz is the next 10 stars because he knocked out Tsitsipas, but unfortunately he had to retire against the Canadian in his match yesterday due to a leg injury. So yes, definitely experience matters, but these players that are coming up at this age are fresh and they're ready to go. They're good competitors. They're really like strong-minded, and they're like in for it. They're there to win. So right now, I think experience does not matter as much as the fire, spirit, and the fire that's within the players, and that's exactly what they've proven on the tennis court. So you're right. There are some youngsters. We're seeing fresh faces on the men and women's side, and these are the players that are going to stay on a very long time on the ATP and WTA tour. So it's good to see these faces, but you're right. Like at the end of the day, if you look at some matches on both sides, there are some youngsters that are coming up and they're doing so well. And Lila Fernandez is like a tremendous example of that. The way she's knocked out some great names like Angelique Kerber, Naomi Osaka, and Svitolina yesterday. So, like I said, you never know. She has like a full chance to win the US Open Tennis Championships. The way she's playing and the fearless tennis that she's playing on the court right now, she's hitting winners out of nowhere, and she's done that 3 times consistently. So you never know. I think I would put my money on her to win the US Open Tennis Championships for sure. Yeah.
Definitely, and we've got to talk about the match between Novak Djokovic and Matteo Berrettini, the Italian. Now we do know that maybe Berrettini's not been talked about much because the aura of Djokovic is just too much. We talk about him attaining tennis immortality, but Berrettini has been a former Wimbledon finalist. He lost to Djokovic in the last Wimbledon. He got hold of him in the first set, but after that it was just Djokovic masterclass. So it just becomes a final before the final. But so far, how would you like to comment on this match?
Well, Berrettini has, like you just said, that Berrettini played a Wimbledon final against Djokovic, right? So he knows, I think he's definitely going to look back at that match and take some experience from that, because we all know that Djokovic is like the mentally toughest player on the ATP tour right now. He was down a set in his previous match as well, against an American player. Sorry, I can't place his name, but then the way he fought back and he came back in that match and was able to win that in 4 sets. I think the next 3 sets were very straightforward, like 6-3, 6-2, and 6-3, something like that. So that pretty much tells you the experience that Djokovic has and the number of Grand Slam titles that he has right now. I think to break that off and to be able to put that aside is going to be very challenging mentally for Berrettini. But then again, you can't take anything away from him because of his performance in Wimbledon and then the way he's played throughout the US Open Championships. He definitely has a chance against Djokovic, but mentally I think I would still give Djokovic the edge because of the matches that he's fought through and because of his past experience. I don't think I've seen any player that is mentally tougher than Novak Djokovic my entire tennis life. So, to call him off is something that I don't think I can do. But then again, I'm not going to take anything away from Berrettini. He's playing some tremendous tennis. He has a chance against Djokovic. So, if he learns from his match at Wimbledon, he definitely has a shot at it. And, if he doesn't repeat the same mistakes. But then again, we know in tennis, every day is a new day. It's a fresh start. It's all the way down from zero. So it depends on that day, how Berrettini feels, how Djokovic feels. And then again, the mental aspect, I would definitely give it to Djokovic because of the track record and the past matches. And the players also know when they step in on the court against Djokovic that you can never count him out, even if your match point up against him. So that is a big ask to beat him. But I would still put my money on Djokovic somehow. I think Djokovic in 4 sets against Berrettini.
Definitely. Ushna Suhail, thank you so much for joining us on Sports Extra. Right, that was tennis player Ushna Suhail talking to us regarding the US Open. And we do know that Djokovic is right now the favorite to clinch the crown, but he's battling in a semi-final against the Italian Matteo Berrettini. And then, of course, in the other semi-finals for the men's side, we've got Daniil Medvedev up against his Canadian opponent, Felix Auger, who got a walkover in his quarterfinal lineup. But nonetheless, it's going to be a great end to the US Open when it moves to the final. And then, of course, Leylah Fernandez's story is already a sensational one. Time will tell who clinches the women's and men's crown of the US Open, but some great tennis on offer in the last couple of days that are remaining for the US Open as well. That's all we have time for. But before we go, it's time now for a segment that is the news in brief. And in the news in brief, we've got first women's cricket season is going to start with the 4 teams battling out for the title. That is, of course, a women's tournament that begins under the PCB's banner. And it's going to be once again a cracker because women cricket has gotten a lot of promotion. This is going to be 4 teams, a total of 14 matches that would be played. Venues include National Stadium and the Oval Academy in Karachi. Also in the news in brief, we've got Formula One, where we know that George Russell is all set to race for Mercedes next season. Russell will line up alongside Lewis Hamilton. It's going to be an all-English team now. Russell made his F1 debut in 2019, joining Williams. He said that he's excited to join Mercedes. He also raced for Mercedes before when Hamilton was out due to COVID-19 in Bahrain Grand Prix. He started on pole position, had the fastest lap, but unfortunate due to pit errors and a puncture that he suffered through his car, he was forced to finish at 9th place. But like I said, an all-English team. Valtteri Bottas' move has been confirmed, who had been there for Hamilton for the past many years, is all set to leave Mercedes, making way for George Russell to join Mercedes as their new driver alongside the champion Lewis Hamilton. We also have the FIFA World Cup qualifiers that are underway. Belarus is taking on Belgium tonight in Russia. Both teams are, of course, in practice. Griezmann has shined for France and Netherlands have thumped Turkey by 6-1. Memphis Depay registered a hat-trick, and this was after journalists had called Louis van Gaal's tactics as too defensive, and then he comes up with a 6-1 victory against Turkey. I think that's the best way to answer to your critics. And finally, in the news in brief, we know that the ICC Player of the Month nominees are out. Shaheen Shah Afridi has been nominated for the Player of the Month. He was phenomenal in the Test series against the West Indies. Other nominees include Joe Root from England and Jasprit Bumrah from India. That's it for this edition of Sports Extra. Until next time, from me and the entire team, it's goodbye for now.